Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar tonight. My name is Rahema Kavuga, and I serve as the Synod Relations Manager for Lutheran Church Extension Fund. We are so grateful for the opportunities that we can get to offer a variety of services for our church body. And especially during these times, we know that educators and administrators have a lot going on. And personally, they are my heroes, especially during this time. We know that it's a different type of school year, and there are new stresses that we couldn't have even imagined 6 months ago, and yet you are doing such great work. And so Lutheran Church Extension Fund wants you to know that you are in our prayers as you continue to minister the families at your schools. As we think about that, we wanted to offer a couple of webinars that are focused for teachers specifically. Yesterday, we were blessed to hear about the ministry of Tech 21. And if you were unable to join us in that webinar, it was recorded and will be sent out along with this webinar tomorrow. Tonight, our focus is on you, the educator, and about your mental health. So much has been said across the news, through social media regarding children's mental health, but we know that as teachers, you need a mental health break too. And so we really want to take an opportunity to give you some tips and hopefully the opportunity to rest for just a moment. Before we begin, a few reminders. This webinar will be recorded, and you are muted right now. If you're having any issues or if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please make sure you drop them into the chat feature. We will have time at the end for our presenter to answer any of those questions. And as I said earlier, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out via email, as well as our webinar that was yesterday. Before I introduce our speaker, would you please join me in a word of prayer? Thank you, Heavenly Father, for your bountiful goodness, which you give to us freely, even when we don't deserve it, Lord. This evening, I especially lift up all of our educators for the work that you have entrusted in them to do, Lord. And in the midst of that, I ask that you would continue to bless them, strengthen them, heal any broken bodies, souls, and spirits, Lord. And may you fill them with your spirit to remind them of the bigger work that you've called them to do through their ministry. Be with our speaker this evening. May her words fill us with extra knowledge and peace and comfort, as well as tools that we can use to continue to serve ourselves better, our families better, and our school communities better. All this I pray in your name. Amen. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our presenter, Megan Miessler, a licensed clinical social worker who serves as the Executive Director of Lutheran Counseling Services, a recognized service organization of the LCMS. Since 1987, LCS has provided a wide range of confidential services. Originally founded by the Lutheran Church and local community leaders in Winter Park, Florida, Lutheran Counseling Services has grown into an independent nonprofit agency providing mental health counseling and consulting services locally and nationally. In 2016, LCS served over 700 clients, of which 245 were children. Megan began her work with children as a youth director in a Lutheran church, and now works with children and families with a focus on play therapy, depression, anxiety, crisis intervention, school counseling, and marriage therapy. Megan is a graduate of the University of Central Florida in Orlando with a BA in psychology and a Master of Social Work. She completed the DCE program through Concordia St. Paul. Megan and her husband have been married for 15 years, and they are parents of 3 children, a son and 2 daughters, ages 13, 11, and 8. Please join me in welcoming Megan.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here virtually with you guys and just get a chance to share some things that I think we should all do, but especially in this pandemic, things that you teachers definitely need to be doing. So Rahima read my bio. I always kind of like to say, I don't try to come as an expert in anything, but share things from my experience. A lot of times I share stories as a parent, as a full-time working mom that has its own stresses for sure, but want to be present with you. And I really, even though I can't see your faces, I want to push and challenge you because I know that self-care is not easy. It is not easy for me. And at times it feels selfish. So if you've ever heard me present before, I talk a lot and I talk loud. So if you have to turn down your volume, I apologize. But when I'm with you face to face, I love to engage and interact with you. So please, like Rahim has shared, please, please, please put your questions, put your feedback in the chat. Would love to engage with you. And at the end, I will share my information with you. So if you had any questions or more things that you want to talk about, I'm very open to doing that, and check my email more than I should. So today we're talking about self-care and this concept that we always hear about when we're on an airplane resonates with me so much. So self-care at its core, what it is the mindful taking time to pay attention to you. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a way that ensures that you're being cared for by you. And I always hear people say, it just feels selfish. It just feels selfish to step away from my family for a moment and do something that I enjoy. It just feels selfish. And so for me, it struck me, and I haven't been on an airplane in quite a while, but they always say to us moms specifically, make sure you put your oxygen mask on before you put it on your child, because like you would pass out, right? And so it's such a concept that makes total logical sense that I need oxygen before I give it to my child, but it's not my gut reaction. It just isn't. It's not my innate thing to do. My innate thing would be to take care of my kids first. My innate thing today, when I had to go to the restroom, was to make sure they all had food first, right? Like, why is it my innate thing to make sure their needs are met before mine? And so I want to put that kind of visual in your head that it's not selfish to take care of yourself. You are more effective. You are just much more effective when you do step away for a moment and give care to you. You give yourself oxygen so that you will be around longer in a crashing airplane to give oxygen to your child. Makes logical sense, but it's not always our gut reaction. And so for me and for a lot of people that I work with, caregivers, which you are, we have to make ourselves take those steps. And what I want to remind you is that Jesus, when he walked this earth, did set that example. There are so many stories in the New Testament about Jesus hiding, escaping from the crowds to either be with the disciples or to go and meet with his heavenly Father. He was literally hiding. Now, I don't know about you, but I try to hide in my room. Those children find me. But he went away. He went away and he engaged in self-care. His self-care was being connected to his Father, being poured in to by his Father. But I just want you to have that image that it's not a selfish thing. Jesus set the example for us to do. And at times, Jesus tried to get care from the disciples too. That wasn't always the most effective thing for him, but he left and he got away. Even where he was probably needed the most, he stepped away. And what I found in my work is oftentimes when I step away and to give myself care or to calm myself down, or I don't respond to something immediately, it gives that person who was asking something of me time to figure it out themselves. It can be a helpful time. My kids know how to make dinner. They can do it, right? It gives them a time to be independent, to problem solve on their own. It's not taking away from them in all reality. A lot of times it's empowering other people. And you set a beautiful example when you do. So we really want this to be engaging. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do right now, okay? I want you to take out your phone or whatever device you have, other than what you're watching on, probably, or maybe you could do it too. And I want you to take a selfie of yourself. It does not have to be anything pretty or beautiful. I just want you to grab a snapshot of yourself, because I'm going to ask you to pull this back up while we're talking today so that we can make sure that the things that we're talking about, you're focusing on you. See, sometimes when you go into presentations and you hear things or tips or things that might be true about other people in your life, you start to think, oh, I've got to tell my husband this, or, oh, my coworker really needs to hear this. You know, my principal, he doesn't take care of himself. But I want to work to keep your brain focused on you during this time. So grab a selfie of yourself. Here are our selfies. There's Rahima with her nice New Orleans cup. If you didn't know, her and I spent lots of time in New Orleans at the National Youth Gathering. I had a different selfie on here, but for some reason, last week, I decided to dye my hair like, I don't know what you would call that, hot pink or something. So that is me currently. So do you have a selfie of yourself? I hope you do. We're gonna refer back to it. Our brain does this thing where it tries to protect us. And so if something is kind of getting too close, we will put a wall up and start thinking about somebody else. And typically as a therapist, I would start this presentation of us talking about other people and end it talking about you. But I'm going to try to keep your brain engaged and keep you focused on yourself. So one of the biggest things about self-care is understanding how your brain works and what your brain needs. This word, integration of the brain, really means that you need all parts of your brain working together. And in that selfie we just took, there is a brain. I promise you it is there. And what we want to talk about is finding a way to balance your brain through times of stress, through times of decision making, through times of COVID, through times of panic. So when we talk about integration of the brain, the first type we talk about is horizontal integration, where your left brain and your right brain are working together. Now, if you look at this picture on the screen, and I want you to figure out what side are you predominantly in. Are you more of like a creative, passionate, artsy type of person and hang out more in your right brain? Or are you more left brain, like analytical, things need to be logical, science, you're a realist? Where do you lie? What side is that for you? And what we want to be able to do is bring balance. So for me, a lot of times I am a left brain person. I want things to line up. Like I want A plus B to get us to C. And I need things in an order. I like to have schedules. So I tend to go pretty far left. And I can go so far left that I take out like the emotion and the freedom and just that creativeness out of decision makings or interactions that I'm doing. And typically we marry the opposite. My hubby is a very right brain. He's very kind of like spiritual and spontaneous and go with the flow kind of, I don't know, like flowy. So when him and I are talking and brainstorming and making decisions, it helps me find that balance. And I really want to fight against it sometimes because I need all of our decisions to make sense. And he's more of like a leap of faith guy. And so it's so helpful to have that in my life. But there are times when he is not there, and I have to really think through, am I just making this decision because it makes sense? Like, have I thought through ways to think outside of the box and be creative? And so when we can use both left and right brain together, we find balance and are integrated. There is also vertical integration. Integration really means that your upstairs and your downstairs brain are making decisions together. Your downstairs brain is a very instinctual. It's where your big emotions lie. It's where your reactions will come from. But your upstairs brain helps you problem solve and think through things and make choices. And so again, we want to be correlated vertically. We want to be integrated vertically. And sometimes when our emotions are too big and take over, we are reacting instead of thinking through our upstairs brain. So self-care, taking time to step away, taking time to very much be intentional about integrating our brain, making sure that we're not just trying to be too spontaneous and creative without thinking through and problem solving, and then making sure that we're not reacting on big emotions, but we're actually thinking through our prefrontal cortex. That all helps our brain to be integrated. And when things work together in our brain, it is a much clearer picture of how we need to move forward, of how we need to take steps. But all too often in times of crisis, in times that like COVID, that downstairs brain becomes just lit up. And actually what happens in the downstairs brain is it gets full of adrenaline. And it's hard sometimes to settle it back down. And so being able to take care of yourself, being able to name what big emotion you feel is so important. Here are 3 ways to really integrate your brain. One is that you really need to exercise your brain. If you are more of a left brain person, find ways to be creative. Now, I am a very left brain person, but there is something about Halloween that I don't know, I just go crazy and love. And I make all these homemade decor stuff. And then today our practice was invited to do a trunk for like a drive-by trunk or treat. And I have been on Pinterest more than I care to admit, but that stuff just, I love it. I just love looking up costumes and how we're going to decorate our trunk and how we're going to talk about feelings during Halloween. Like it just lights me up. And so that's the way I exercise my creative side. And maybe for you who might be more right brain, it's about logic and puzzles and figuring some of those things out to really exercise the left brain. The other one I use so much, and I think is great with kids, Dan Siegel in his book calls Name It to Tame It. And so all too often, when that downstairs brain is lit up with so many emotions, we just need to name them. Like we need to say out loud, this is what I'm feeling. And once you can say it, it's like you can wrap your arms around it. It's like you can be like, oh, yeah, I am annoyed right now. Why am I annoyed? Oh, I'm annoyed because the internet wasn't working. It's got me all flustered. And all right, what can I do? And I can then, once I've named that emotion, I can begin thinking through my upstairs brain and calm down that downstairs brain. And then the last one on there is called Connect and Redirect. And these are really times where we need to connect with people, or we need that soothing peace that really calms us, that soothing peace that brings us some enjoyment or something that we feel passionate about. And so it might be something that you've neglected, that you just need to be able to reconnect with. When I work with clients who are often depressed and feeling unmotivated, we talk about like, what are your hobbies? And most of the time people will say, I don't like doing anything now. And I have to get them to a place where what were your hobbies before it felt like this? What were your hobbies before COVID? What did you feel motivated to do before? Because that's you and not a crisis state. And we need to connect back there to those things that we were passionate about, to those right brain pieces that lit up our brain. We need to connect back there. And if you don't have the motivation to do it now, push yourself to do it. When I was a young teenager, my aunt, who just got in town actually, taught me how to crochet. And so I was a college kid, crocheting blankets and stuff. And every once in a while, when I find myself just really kind of frustrated and lethargic, I'll pull out my crochet because there's just a piece I love about it. And my husband's always like, why do you keep all that yarn? Like, this is silly. But it is something that I'll reconnect with at times to be able to find that balance in my brain. So pulling that selfie back out, I want you to take a look at it. Again, we're talking about you. So if you would, really quick in the chat, what do you tend more towards? Are you more a left brain person or a right brain person? Pop it in the chat. I would love to hear. Do you land more logical and planned and kind of scientific in the left brain? Or are you more creative and like passionate and free spirit in the right brain? No left brain or right brain is bad. It's how God created us. It is what fuels us and gives us passions for sure. And I think teachers, you might even see in how you teach if you're more left brain or right brain. And if you find, I see a couple people in the comments saying like, I'm left brain, but I like to be creative, then that really means that you've been able to find some balance. And I want to encourage you towards those balancing activities. Okay, so back on yourself. We got you back focused over here on your brain, on your picture, on your selfie. So down here in Florida, we work a lot with teachers. And here's what I know about you. And you can argue with me if you'd like in the comments. But what I find most about teachers is that there is this expectation that you have to be happy and energetic to be in front of your class and to be engaging. And so it's almost like you are expected, or you believe that you are expected to put on a mask each day. And even if life is difficult and you are stressed and overwhelmed, you better walk into that classroom with a smile on your face and enough energy to tackle the day. And again, if I'm wrong, tell me. If you don't feel that way, good. But I would really like to dispel this, because I think, one, that takes so much energy to put on a mask and then to wear it for 8 hours a day. And two, it's not you. Like, people don't get to know you. And when we wear these masks, what begins to eat in us inside is like, oh, people really like that mask that I'm portraying, but they know nothing about me. And so ultimately they must not like me, but you haven't put yourself out there for them to like or dislike. The other piece about masks like this, and this might lead to some guilt, and that's not what I'm going for, but I just want you to think about this concept. You're doing your students a disservice. You are their example. You are, and what I had to come to realize, the person that spends the most time with my kids, right? And so what we are finding so much in this mental health crisis that we are in is the way to dispel it is if we can normalize what we're all feeling. That if we take the mask off and be like, this is just awful for everybody right now. That if you as a teacher could say, I'm just feeling really anxious today. I promise you, You'd have some students in your class that be like, oh, what can I do for you? How can I help? But you'll have some students that silently will breathe a sigh of relief and be like, good, I'm not the only one that feels that way. If my teacher feels that way, then it's okay if I feel that way. And so, good self care, good self care and being an example to your students is to own what you feel, to be honest and transparent. Now, age appropriately honest and transparent. But again, you're the greatest example in your students' lives. You set the tone for what they think is normal and good and allowed. And so we really can do such a disservice if we hide what we're feeling. And really, it can tear you down on the inside. I've been working with a teacher for quite a while, for many, many years. And this comes up so much, not just with her, but with a couple of them. And it really has led to the point where she's put on the mask for so long that she's not sure she could take it off because she doesn't think people would like who she is. And she thinks that she would be a burden to other people. And I get that to some extent, but what I continue to challenge her on is, how do you know they won't like you if you've never been you? So you get upset that people don't reach out to you because you're divorced and you don't have anywhere to go for Christmas, but you don't put yourself out there. You don't let people know that you're lonely or upset. So to get upset with them for not inviting you is hard to blame on them sometimes. I hope that's making sense. So I would encourage you, one of the biggest pieces of self-care is to own what you're feeling. As we walk through COVID right now, this crisis, we have to understand that we're all struggling with different griefs and different losses, but we have to allow ourselves to experience the emotions that we have when it's appropriate in order to work through our grief. Those masks that we wear hold up our grief so much. So I encourage you one more time to look at that selfie again and to let me know, do you agree or disagree in the chat? Yes, you feel like the expectation is that you have to be happy all the time, or no, that's not the expectation in the culture that you're in. So a simple yes or no, throw it in the chat. What is the expectation put on you in the environment that you are in? And I'm not saying it's the expectation from staff around you maybe, but is it your expectation of yourself? Seeing some no's and seeing some yeses. I also want you to think too, do you agree with that expectation? Is it a subconscious expectation that maybe we put out there? I have this client that I have worked with for so long. She's not a teacher. And she moved down here from New York and Florida. And I don't know, maybe it's our culture here, but she gets so mad when everybody says, have a great day. And she always says, why do I have to have a great day? What if I don't want to have a great day? And or somebody will say, how are you? And she'll be like, I'm in a lot of pain. And they'll be like, oh, I hope you feel better. Why do I have to feel better? It's like challenging that belief that in the things that we say and in the culture that we live in, are we always saying that we have to be happy? And where does that come from? I think it's important for us to think about. One of the biggest things we always talk about too is burnout. Okay, so it's 2020, probably the craziest year I have ever walked through and experienced. And I have had so many moments of my own burnout during this pandemic. I think Melissa's on here, and she's been in a couple of my book clubs. And literally in the last book we were going through, I just stopped. Like, I don't think they heard from me for a couple weeks. I don't think we even finished it. And I hit a wall. And I was just done. And my husband and I got an Airbnb in North Carolina, and I literally checked out. And I'm the executive director. You're not really supposed to do that, but I just needed to. I needed to remember why I love what I'm doing. And sometimes in the midst of crisis, we completely forget that. And I'm not saying you guys all have the time to just check out, but I'm just telling you that because I experience it, and this is what I talk about for a living. So um, but really what I find so fascinating about the word burnout is that it really was coined by the America's Psychological Association in 1970s. And the reason that they came up with this word burnout was to describe the consequences of severe stress and high ideals put on people in the helping profession. Nowadays, it's used to describe feeling exhausted, listless, and unable to cope. But literally, I want you to hear that. This word was created for you, for teachers in the helping profession. That's what you do. You help students every single day. So this word applies to you. We know it is going to happen to you. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it is something that you need to be aware of and guard against. So signs of burnout, feeling exhausted, but also this feeling of feeling detached. And, you know, in the work that I do, I hear so many stories, and you guys have so many stories that walk in your classroom. And when I start to not have a reaction anymore, I know that I felt detached. Not that I don't care, it's that I am not connected. And that's an important sign for me. Feeling ineffective, trouble sleeping, or being constantly irritated. I am one too. If I'm having a difficult day, I'll get home from work and I will notice everything, like just everything. Like, why didn't you empty your lunchbox? Anybody else going to do the dishes? So I just come home and clean up after all of you. And by the time I probably said the fifth critique, my husband kind of looks at me and he's like, you should probably go change. And he's just like, you're being a little irritating right now. Like, we're all good and you just walk in here like a storm. And so, you know, thank God for him that he can remind me when, man, I'm really sounding on edge. So those really are some signs of burnout. A lot of these signs of burnout can also be signs of depression. So what I want you to focus on is that burnout is usually more associated with your roles and your duties at work, and not all over at home too, or in the things that you enjoy. So if we're really focusing on like feeling detached from work, being irritable, sharp with people at work, getting exhausted during the day, those type of things are going to be associated with burnout. Also, if we see that we're having increased illness, just feeling lethargic, maybe having symptoms of illness, stomach aches, lack of focus, appetite, anxiety, anger, those can be some other signs of burnout as well. So what should we do? I don't like this first one. I'm not good at saying no. I can easily get into a fix-it mode, into a savior complex. Are you feeling me? I know is a hard word for me, but really, we do need to say no. And just like taking time for self-care, saying no allows somebody else to step up and do something, allows people to problem solve. Exercise. I always say that and people kind of groan, but 20 minutes a day, raise your heart rate for 20 minutes a day. And what we know happens is that it releases endorphins in your body that you need to fight stress. I'm not talking go run a mile every day, because I'm not doing that. Walk, ride a bike, rock your dog, play tag with your kids. My son on the autism spectrum, we said, you need to exercise, man. He's like, I hate exercising. I got a bubble machine. We blew bubbles. He chopped them up with a sword. That was his exercise. Be creative, but find something to release those endorphins. Prayer. God wants you to fall at his feet. And I do some of my best self-care when I think I can talk God into something that I think I need, and he knows I don't. So spend time at his feet, spend time just churning it to him. Get your needs met. And when I say your needs met, like eat and sleep and talk to people, those are your core needs. Eat, sleep, socialize, and exercise. And then find ways to connect with how you relax. Find ways to get connected to those things that fill you up. Like I said, people are important and boundaries are important. I've gotten better about not working on the weekends, to the point where my coworker, who's my father, was like, yeah, you didn't respond to my email. I'm like, dude, it is Saturday. I got boundaries here. So set them. Honor family time. One of the best advices I ever got was to stop apologizing that my family had a conflict with something that was needed of me by somebody else. I would always catch myself saying, oh, I'm so sorry my daughter has volleyball practice. And so somebody a couple of years ago was like, "What? Don't apologize. Your family comes first. Don't you ever apologize for having a conflict with your family." And it's been so hard for me to break, and I'm not really good at it, but it's been a goal for me. Set goals and journaling. So often we as church workers, you are a church worker, know that that's to the core of who you are and the role that you serve. We don't connect to people outside of our nice little Lutheran bubble. And, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I probably won't. But I need to connect with people that know Megan for Megan. I need to connect with people that don't see me as their therapist, don't see me as an executive director, but see me as that crazy chick who screams at Lightning hockey games or who likes a good glass of wine at night. Like, I need to connect to people that know me for me. And so do you. You need to connect with people that know you for who you are and who God made you, not for being the first grade teacher or the principal or the science teacher. You need to connect with people who know you for you. And so that means that you need to have friends that might not be Lutheran. You need to have friends that don't always go to church with you. You need to have friends outside your bubble. And I can't stress how important that is. I grew up as a pastor's kid, and it was hard to have people who didn't know me as that. And so I want to encourage you, have people who know you for you. All right, checking in. I just got a couple more minutes. I hope you're here on that selfie. What is something that you could do right now in the next week to guard yourself against burnout? Put that in the chat for me. What were one of those things? Connecting with people, exercising, relaxation activities, getting enough sleep. What's something that you can do in the next week? Throw it in the chat to really prevent burnout in yourself. Maybe it's prioritizing family time, saying no when it's needed, and maybe adjusting your definition of when it's needed might be good. Yeah, throw it in the chat. I would love to hear. So many people get creative too about their relaxation times or relaxation activities. And I love to hear what you like to do. Spending time with a friend for no reason, going on walks. I love it. Keep throwing them up. Watch a movie, read a book. Perfect. Ways that you relax. Yeah, let's touch on sleep for 1 second. So really, for adults, 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night get you into your REM sleep. And so if you're not getting at least 6 hours of sleep a night, you're not, your body's not able to reset. So it's so important to do that. And often, and I've said this before, and what I say doesn't go, but I'm not a big fan of naps because napping really throws off your sleep cycle at night. Now, if you have medical reasons, you need to take naps, whatever, but make sure you're getting that 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night. And if you're not, connect with your doctor. Seriously, connect with your doctor. To be able to find a way to stay asleep for that long is so important. I totally forgot the other thing I love to do, which is get out on my kayak. Down here in Florida, we can totally do that all the time. All right, so my one last thing I really wanted to share with you guys. And usually I would turn my camera on, but I'm at my parents' house tonight because, kids take up internet at my house, is this hub of awareness. And so if you could envision a bicycle tire, okay, so that's what this picture is, a bicycle tire. And out on the actual rubber of the tire was everything that's going on in your life right now. All the tests you have to grade, the bills you have to pay, planning for trunk or treat, which like super excites me. A new hammock in the backyard that my husband bought me, looking forward to meeting with a friend, that nasty coworker who screamed at me yesterday. It's all out there, good and bad, on that rubber tire. And what our goal should be is when we are centered, when we are thinking clearly, when we are integrated in our brain, we hang out right there where it says hub in the middle, where we can see all the blessings, all the stressors from the same perspective. When we're not taking time for self-care, when our brain is not integrated, what we tend to do is just go down one of those spokes and only focus on the fact that this person said something mean to me and they don't like me and I'm not good enough. But what we need to do is be in that hub in the middle where we can see everything from the same perspective. When we're in that hub, we are open and aware. We're not pushing it away that somebody said something hurtful or that I've got bills to pay. We can see them, but we're not overwhelmed by them. So those things that you do to relax are great. But I want you to think a little bit differently about what you do to get in your hub. See, in your hub, you're aware. In your hub, you notice things. You're not avoiding them. There's times where I need to check out and I need to avoid, but there also are times where I just need to connect and be centered. And so things like journaling, prayer, devotional time, things, music, worship, Bible study, what pulls you back into that hub where you are aware of everything that's going on, the things that you need to get done, the things that fuel you, it's all there, but you are at peace about it and you're receptive and open to hearing where God is leading you. I want you to identify what gets you there, what gets you in your hub. Now, it might change for you. A couple of years ago for me, when I had small kids and all we did was listen to Disney in the car, I could get in my hub by like nobody in the car and just playing my music and worshiping like with me alone in the car. Nowadays, I have two teenagers who don't talk to me even when they are in the car and have headphones on. So it's a whole different story. But think about that for you. What gets you into that hub? What it is for me now, and I'll share with you, I've become so reliant, I don't even know if that's a good word, on my bullet journal. So I have a bullet journal. If you've ever seen them on Pinterest, they're like over the top, but I have a bullet journal, and in my bullet journal, I have a habit tracker, and I track the habits that I want to do every day. And it helps me to see on the days where I've done the habits, where I've done my devotions, where I've done my gratefulness log, where I've remembered to give my husband a hug because it's on my habit tracker, because touch is not my love language and it's his. When I remember to take my medicine, when I remember to get exercise and drink water and not as much alcohol, like those are on my habit tracker. When I can connect in those times, I'm in my hub. I am aware of the things that are going on around me. When I get off, when I forget my medicine and I don't dive into my devotions, when I sleep in like I did this morning, I don't always land in that hub. And so I want you to identify what's a habit that you have that gets you to that place where you're centered, where you're aware, where you're not avoiding, but where you're aware of who you are, what's going on in your world, and where God is leading you. Share in the chat if you have that activity, that that thing that just pulls you back in, and keeps you centered. I think when we brainstorm and share those ideas of how we get there, how we calm ourselves, how we center our body, one, we give other people ideas of things to try, but also we affirm it in ourselves. So share in the chat. I would love to hear from you. What gets you there in your hub? Reading a book, good book, Melissa said. I think there's so many good books out there too. And for me, it's been a book. We were doing a book about anxiety. We did Girl Wash Your Face. So I think books that challenge me to look in that way are great. Worship, listening to the words, playing a guitar. Oh, I love that. Journaling, reading. Yeah, all of those things can help to center us. I'll tell you one more thing and then I'll open it for questions because I know I'm short on my time, but I did this activity with a bunch of pastors. I love them dearly. I pick on pastors because I'm a pastor's kid, but and I think that gives me the right. So I said, what do you do? What do you do to get into your hub? And so many of them said, I watch TV. What was the other thing? They said something else. And around the room, most of it was watch TV, watch a movie, take a nap. And I was like, guys, that's avoiding things. That's not centering you. That's avoiding things. So really this idea of getting into your hub is finding a place where you're open and aware. So bullet journal is great. Also helps me check off tasks for sure. I really want you to reflect. So that selfie, what are 3 things that person needs from you? What are 3 things that you need to give back to yourself? If you can jot them down, maybe in our nice technology world, you can even write that on your selfie. Would love to hear that. And as you guys have any questions, as I'm going to start to wrap up here, please put it in the chat. I don't know, I haven't seen any come across, Rahima, but if you have some, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions or any feedback about things that people would like to have.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I know people are continuing to write stuff. I guess I had one question as I was listening to you. You know, I feel like, especially with this year and a lot of my teacher friends that I'm talking to and connect with, so often you talked about that mask and like, do you have any like piece, I don't know how to ask this question. Do you have any good advice, like in the midst of the chaos of the day, like you've gone through the morning and you've gotten through math and reading and somehow they made it to recess and then you're just like, I really don't want to put this mask on, but I just need to like, the phrase that I wrote down was calming my mind during the day, especially because that also adds stress too. And I thought about that as you listed one of the signs of burnout is insomnia. And so often I know for me, it's because I'm racking my brain through everything. And I just need to calm my mind. So how do you suggest or a quick tool or something to even like reflect upon as you go through the day?
Yeah, so we teach a lot about grounding techniques, and I think a grounding technique would be very helpful in kind of just calming your brain. So often, especially with insomnia or anxiety, our brain is like 20 steps ahead of us. It's like a what if, or then I have to do this, and I got this, and it's just like a long like laundry list of everything that needs to get done or things that we're worried about. And so a grounding technique brings you back to the present moment. So one of the most simple grounding techniques to do, and you can do it with kids too, it's really great. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you go through your 5 senses. So you literally, either to yourself or out loud, you name 5 things you see right now in the room. My friend. And then you name 4 things that you smell, and 3 things that you taste, and 2 things that you hear, and 1 thing that you like feel on your body. And so that technique of grounding yourself gets you right back into the present space that you're in. As far as insomnia though, I'm really big about your 5 senses. And I would encourage people as they're trying to fall asleep at night to kind of go through your senses and think like, how can I desensitize myself by each of my senses? And again, I'm a big fan of bullet journals. Just like listing out the things that you need to get off your brain is so important. I'm not sure if that answered all of your question. I see a couple other questions popping in.
Yeah,
But
no, I think that's good. And I mean, I think everyone needs to, have the opportunity to do something, but I think just taking even the time to do it during the day, and that can be hard
yeah,
to do, like do it on your bathroom break if you need to, or, or something, because sometimes in the middle of the day, it just gets to be a lot too. But I do have a question. The first one is, what's your best advice for finding motivation to do the things that we know are good for you, like the list that you gave us, when all you want to do is shut down and not do anything?
yeah, I mean, you really have to push through. Like, I'm not going to lie, it's not an easy piece. I think one of the best things is to have somebody help hold you accountable. So, if like, I really need to go on a walk tonight, you call a friend in the morning and say, I know I need to go on a walk tonight. Like, I know I'm going to talk myself out of it. Let's meet here. Like, if I make plans for you, I won't break them. Like, you have ways to hold yourself accountable. Also, though, if we're experiencing a lot of lack of motivation, where we're not even getting things done that we would normally get done, I would encourage you to go to your doctor and make sure that you're not struggling with some depression or something that is maybe has gone too far out of your control, that you like willpower won't get you back there. But one of the best things to do with lack of motivation is to exercise in some way. It releases the endorphins in our brain that we need to motivate us. So making plans, having people hold you accountable, but also just do things that you like, that you have liked to do in the past, and find a way to engage in those things would definitely be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we have another question. Any ideas on encouraging others who are in the same boat with us so that we can move forward together instead of just whining about it? And I know, like, man, let's talk about all the rules that you have to do now for teaching, right? And it's so easy to whine, but if you're trying to be encouraging, if you're doing all of these things, to kind of avoid that burnout feeling, but all around you, it's not. How do we motivate other people or encourage?
Well, that's where I want you to take the mask off. Like, I want you to admit that it's hard and difficult and overwhelming for you. And I honestly believe it allows other people around you to take a deep breath and be like, thank goodness I'm not the only one who feels this way. So that's first and foremost in my book, always. And then I do think it's about, kind of setting goals or holding each other accountable. I was talking to a teacher the other day, and she was like, if we all could just work together, we only have 10 kids that are still e-learning, and I'm down here in crazy Florida and they do things differently, but they're like, if we could just all take one day, then it would take the stress off of all of us. And so I think sometimes brainstorming on how we can work together would be very important, and how we can motivate and encourage each other. Also, those pieces of understanding when somebody needs to vent or whine and when somebody needs encouragement. I think if you have good relationships with people that are venting or whining to you about it, that you allow them to vent and you allow them to whine, and then you brainstorm with them what they can do to help themselves. Again, we're in a caregiving profession, and we are going to want to fix problems for other people, and that's hindering. So brainstorming with them what they could do to help themselves and what you're doing to help yourself would be important, because then you're a team, right? Then you're walking together side by side instead of dragging somebody along. So that would really be my encouragement. Take the mask off, figure out ways to hold each other accountable, let the venting time happen, and then brainstorm solutions or ways to make improvements.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I mean, I think that's a perfect place to stop, is just that encouragement, and hopefully this being able to listen. And I encourage everyone who's listening now, that you would share this with others, just to give perspective, because sometimes it is so hard. And I know, Megan, you would agree, it is hard
Yes.
to maybe start that conversation and to do this, but something like this can start the conversation too, so that when you say, I am taking off this mask and being real and honest with my coworkers and things like that, there's a baseline of the same conversation, understanding of what that means. So on the screen here, Megan has put her services, and one of the, I think, really unique things, I'm a big fan of Megan, we've known each other for a long time, and the work that Lutheran Counseling Services does. And in the midst of the pandemic, one of the blessings, I think, that has been not only for her, but for counseling services across the United States, is they've lifted what's traditionally, if I live in Florida, I can use counseling services in Florida and in Florida only. And so those licensing restrictions have been lifted so that people can get the care that they need. So these services, the contact information, whether you just want to email Megan or check out what Lutheran Counseling Services is doing on their website, but this phone number is also free for you to use, where you can speak with someone and get some connection, because we all need that. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Megan.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing, I know Melissa's on here. We are talking about starting another book club. We were just doing it today. So follow us on Facebook. We have like a book club group. And the next one, we're going to really deal with like stress and burnout. Brandy found us a really good book. So if you just want something more like encouraging and uplifting, and if you don't mind seeing my face and hearing my voice, we run a book club. We get on once a week and do a live chat, and then we post questions and stuff during the week. And it might just be a good encouragement to kind of redirect your thoughts. So follow us on social media and you can learn more about that.
Great, thank you. And I will say, I've been in your book club a couple of times and really enjoyed the connections and resources. So thank you so much for that. Well, I again want to thank everyone. I thank especially Megan for your presentation. It's always so helpful and just gives us all the opportunity to pause and reflect. And for those of you that are listening, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been recorded, and you'll receive an email with this and the presentation yesterday on the Tech 21 ministry. So don't hesitate to share those with anyone. They're also posted on our YouTube channel as well. So again, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night. And again, blessings in your ministries and those you come into contact with.
Thank you. Bye.